That was What About Us by Pink, and this is 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, and this is also GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Jell, and thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, I am still in the middle of getting all of my materials set up and organized, which of course means that we'll do a proper start later, but I will tell you it has been a busy release week this week, and there's some interesting things to talk about, such as, let's see, Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash actually came out, Blue Reflection came out, I did actually snap and pick up Penguin-kun Gira Gira Wars, the game I've been talking about on the show a whole lot. A U.S. release is inbound, but I couldn't wait. I went ahead and grabbed the Japanese one, and I can tell you all about its pros and cons later on in the show. And there's also a free-to-download game-ish called Raiders of the Broken Planet that I really want to sink my teeth into talking about, because that game is amazing in the fact that it looks so good. It feels so polished, and yet they managed to just utterly screw it up in the dumbest ways. Now, when I say the dumbest ways, I mean that thankfully those ways could be, patched out without too much trouble, but it's still really, really astonishingly dumb. Also, apparently there is going to be a big old emergency system thing test around 120, so everyone brace for that. That's like a nationwide thing. I've just been informed that that's going to be interrupting my show, so good times for all there. Anyway, do please stay tuned while I pull up what the new releases and new animes are for this week, and I will get right back with you after a short break. But first of all, here is Forever by Mario featuring Rick Ross, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Remember the Enemy by Dead, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. or from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm sorry, got my old times back mixed up. 1 to 3 p.m. And any minute now, we are going to be interrupted by horrible beeping noises. But until that happens, let's try to discuss some of the new games that came out this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. Which the answer to that, let's actually start with that. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is in theaters today at 7 p.m. dubbed. It will be in a bunch of theaters. It is a Fathom event, so it will be, more expensive, but you can see Nausicaa today. I figured I'd get that out of the way before we start getting beeped. Anyway, what came out this week on PlayStation 4? Well, God, there's a lot of things. Batman: The Enemy Within, Episode 2, The Pact. Blue Reflection, which we will talk about a little bit later in the show. Danganronpa V3, Killing Harmony. Don't Starve Megapack. DreamWorks Voltron VR Chronicles. DWVR, which, we will talk about that later in the show, too. Eventide 2, The Sorcerer's Mirror. Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition. FIFA 18 Ronaldo Edition. Fragments of Him. Hob. Light Tracer, which is another PlayStation VR game. Mecho Tales, Neon Chrome Arena, Neo, Bloodshed's End, which is like the last DLC pack for Neo, Pinball FX 3 and about 1 billion pinball tables, Captain America, Marvel Pinball Adventure Chronicle, Marvel's Women of Power, Vengeance and Virtue, Marvel Avenger Age of Ultron, Star Wars Pinball Balance of the Force, Star Wars Pinball Heroes Within, Star Wars Pinball Rogue One, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Aliens vs. Pinball, Balls of Glory Pinball, Bethesda Pinball, Civil Wars, Core Collection, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, Earth Defense, Epic Quest, Excalibur, Fantastic Four, Iron and Steel Pack Mars, Marvel's Ant-Man, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Paranormal, Portal Pinball, Star Wars Pinball, Star Wars Rebels Pinball, The Walking Dead, Universal Classics Pinball, and Venom. Yeah, so, a lot of pinball. Also, a game called Ruiner. I don't know what that's about. Senran Kagura, Peach Beach Splash, another one we will cover later in the show. A game called Splasher, SteamWorld Dig 2, VR Carts, which already came out, so I don't know why that's listed, and Virog, which is a VR frog game that I hear isn't that great. Also, today, for some reason, 100-Foot Robot Golf, which is VR and not VR, is listed as coming out, even though it's been out for, like, almost a year now. Firefighters Airport Fire Department, Mahjong World Contest, Ninja Showdown, Outcast Second Contact, and White Day, a Labyrinth-named school are all coming out tomorrow. And on Friday, FIFA 18, Fort Defense. Oh yeah, Gundam Versus. Gotta remember that. Pharaonic, and The Girl and the Robot. Let's see, Nintendo Switch, what you got? You got Sign Mora EX, Arcade Archives Mario Brothers, which is important because Nintendo rarely does arcade ports. So having an actual arcade-perfect Mario Brothers kind of means something. And tomorrow, the Switch will be getting Astro Bears Party, Binaries, Brave Dungeon, plus Dark Witch Story Combat. Ooh, I like Dark Witch Story. That's a game that's kind of like Mega Man, but not. Butcher, Conga Master Party, Demo, which is some kind of weird music game, Earth Atlantis, Golf Story, Inversus Deluxe, Pankapu, Physical Contact, Picture Place. There it goes. There goes the beeping. Wonderful, wonderful beeping. Beep. Ooh, that's a new kind of beeping.
This is a national test of the emergency alert system.
It sure is.
This is only a test.
Boy, howdy.
Broadcast and cable operators in your area have developed this system in voluntary cooperation with FEMA, the FCC, and local authorities to keep you informed in the event of an emergency.
Good.
If this had been an actual emergency, an official message would have followed the alert tone. This concludes this national test of the emergency alert system.
Woo! And that was some beeping. I hope you enjoyed that. Especially those of you listening on the internet who normally wouldn't get to hear our fantastic beeping. But it is good to know that our emergency alert system will alert us in the case of an emergency. That is very important because emergencies happen sometimes, and that would be bad if they didn't alert us of emergencies. So, getting back to where we were. Pankapu, coming out on Nintendo Switch tomorrow, as well as Physical Contact Picture Place, Picross S, Sparkle 2, Tower of Babel, and then on Friday, FIFA 18 and One Piece Unlimited World Red Deluxe Edition on Nintendo Switch. Oh, whoops, I accidentally did that before Xbox One. Oh, well. Spoilers, I don't really care about the Xbox One all that much. So, Xbox One, what did it get this week? Let's not abandon our Xbox One users, though. I feel for you. I've got an Xbox One. Batman the Enemy Within Episode 2 The Pack came out. Don't Starve Mega Pack. Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition. FIFA 18 Ronaldo Edition. Halo Wars 2 Complete Edition. Lightfield. All that Pinball FX3 stuff. Ruiner. Splasher. WRC 7 Day 1 Edition, so I guess that's World Racing Championship. Battle Garega Revision 2016. Okay, that's interesting. Battle Garega is an old shooting game from Aiding. So, I wonder what's special about Revision 2016. Yeah, Friday, Cuphead comes out, along with FIFA 18, Forza Motorsport 7. There we go, another big one. And Pharaonic? I don't know. 3DS, what'd you get? Monster Hunter Stories The Legend of Zelda. I'm going to assume that's DLC for Monster Hunter Stories. And then on Friday, you're getting Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Specters. And on the Vita, because yes, games do still come out on the Vita. Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony, Koi, and SteamWorld Dig 2 all came out. So that should be all the games that came out this week. What's coming out next week? Well, On PlayStation 4, there's The Hunter, Call of the Wild. Says Batman the Enemy Within the Telltale series, but that's already out. Battle Chasers Night War, a turn-based RPG based on a cult classic comic book. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, I guess, is getting a PlayStation 4 port, though still no sign of Dragon's Dogma Online, which was released in Japan years ago and not available in America. And Jidge. I guess it's supposed to be Judge, but it's spelled with a Y instead of a U, so it's Jidge. You're just going to have to deal with the fact that you named your game Jidge and think about what you did. Moving on. Xbox One. Next week is getting The Hunter, Call of the Wild, Batman the Enemy Within the Telltale series, which is already out. Whatever. Battle Chasers Night War. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. That's good. Forza Motorsport 7. Let Them Come. Marble Void. Minecraft Xbox One Edition, Limited Edition Xbox One S 1 terabyte console. Okay, so they're releasing a new Xbox One that's probably has a Minecraft design and comes with Minecraft. A World Racing Championship 7 and N Double Plus, along with Bulb Boy, Zombie Party, and more Jidge. Nintendo Switch, though, what are you getting next week? Supposedly Battle Chasers Night War, but I think that actually got pushed back for Switch. We'll talk about that later in the show. Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, Super Beat Exonic, Axiom Verge, Tumblestone, Volgar the Viking, and Oxenfree are all coming to Nintendo Switch next week. 3DS next week is getting Culdicept Revolt. Yeah! And Symphony of Eternity, which I know nothing about. That sounds JRPG as heck. Oh, no, I do have this. I have this on my Android. It's the one with the robot. Yeah. This is another one of those Kemco monthly JRPGs. So I was right. Along with Layton's Mystery Journey, Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy, and Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions. Those are all coming out next week for the 3DS. And on the Vita, nothing. Week after next, we get more things on Vita. Having said that, week after next looks like it is going to be another, not as busy week, but still a busy week with, that's when Cyber Dimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online comes out. Summon Night 6 will supposedly come out. All sorts of things. And, is that next week, or is that week after next? I think WWE 2K18 might also be out. But, enough of that. Time to kick you back to the music. And when we come back... I'm sorry. I'm stupid. Let me also remind you, anime in theaters, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is in theaters today at 7 p.m., dubbed. It's in a bunch of theaters. It's a Fathom event, so it'll be a bit pricey, but it is there. And next month, as part of G-Kids Presents Studio Ghibli Fest 2017, Spirited Away will be in theaters October 29th, 30th, and November 1st. Anyway, time to kick you all back to the music. Thank you so much for joining me, and when we get back, we will talk more video game news. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up next is, let's see, What Ifs by Kane Brown, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Heavy by Linkin Park, and this is 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. So I think the biggest news is the fact that this Friday, the Melee begins. The Super Nintendo Classic will be launching this Friday, and of course we are all expecting to strap on our wrist-mounted chainsaws and duel it out for one. I will meet you there on the field of battle, but maybe the Melee won't happen. Maybe there will be no bloodshed. Maybe we can actually buy the system we want. Early reports are coming in that Nintendo has indeed stepped up production to some pretty surprising amounts. Early stock reports from BrickSeek, I'm getting this from Forbes, I'm saying that early stock reports from BrickSeek, which is a thing that checks how much stock there is for certain items, is showing that GameStops should be getting, like, some GameStops are getting in 20 to 25 units, while some really big Targets could be getting up to 300. Now, this is an important thing to remember, and now that I think about it, I should probably wait in line at Target instead of GameStop. See, Nintendo and Target are, like, really buddy-buddy. I don't know what the deal is, but they have, like, a big partnership. Nintendo, that's where they had the Rosalina exclusive figures, and Jigglypuff was an exclusive for Target as well for a while. I think they gave them the highest shipment of Wiis back in the day. If you were there when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out, they had all of Target done up, so like Mario Kart style, like the little balls outside the Target, they put Mario faces on them, and like when you walked through the doors, it made Mario Kart noises, and it was like, okay. So Nintendo and Target are really close, and Target will likely be getting, Target will likely be getting the best stock of Super Nintendo classics. Again, I will see you out there on the field of battle. Here's hoping that we survive it. Of course, I know a lot of people are going to say it's just an emulator box. Why do you care? And the answer, well, number one, is a very nice emulator box with some really great games. I mean, if you knew how much I love Yoshi's Island and regret not buying a cartridge back in the day, and one of the things was that Yoshi's Island was a Super FX2 chip, and for the longest time, Nintendo was not allowed to re-release Super FX chip games, because Nintendo didn't own the rights to the Super FX chip. It belonged to Argonaut Software, who went defunct. Apparently they fixed that, because the SNES Classic is chock full of Super FX chip games. That seems to have actually been their central focus, is, hey, here's a bunch of games we couldn't have released before. Every time they re-released Yoshi's Island, it was the GBA port, which was okay, but not great. It was good for a GBA port, but if you could get the Super Nintendo port, you'd want that one. And now that's finally coming out. And that, of course, ties into the big thing, which is, this is the first official, true, real release of the previously unreleased Star Fox 2. Star Fox 2 was made way back in the day. They released Star Fox 1, it was a huge success. They were like, we're going to continue this, we're going to make Star Fox 2. It was ready by about 1995. But Nintendo had their N64 on the horizon, the PlayStation was already out, they were afraid that releasing Star Fox 2 would make the Super Nintendo look bad, so even though the game was 100% completed, it was canceled. Now, a beta has been floating around the internet for a while. However, one of the guys, like the head guy behind the Star Fox series, one of its original creators, Dylan Cuthbert, who I hear is actually Shigeru Miyamoto's son-in-law? Very interesting. But Dylan Cuthbert confirmed that, no, the copy that was on the internet is not the completed game. That there were features missing, there were problems with it. And people who got early SNES Classics because they were reviewers did confirm this fact. That this is a different version of Star Fox 2 that is in the console. One of the strangest changes is actually the removal of the homing shots. In the beta, that is actually the first appearance of the homing charge shot from Star Fox 64. It started in the Star Fox 2 beta, but that's actually not in the finished game, probably because it made everything too easy. One of the main reasons I'm excited about Star Fox 2, believe it or not, is because it should be much harder. I'm going to tell you this right now, that beta that's floating around the internet is one of the easiest video games I've ever played in my life. I played it on max difficulty, beat it without any sort of issue, and the actual finished game is set to be much harder. The AI is actually finished, they scaled back how powerful some of the characters were, and that was actually a really good call on their part. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh yeah, because the beta, they just wanted to test and make sure that the game ran well, wanted to make sure they could get through all the stages, so they made it easy on themselves, and then they sat there and took notes about what can we do to up the difficulty and make this actually challenging. So that beta on the internet is before any sort of challenge tweaks. And so I'm very excited to get my hands on the finished Star Fox 2 and play through that game, really sink my teeth into it, because, I mean, it's Star Fox 2. I'm excited to play it. I love Star Fox. Love to talk more about that. Anyway, so that's probably the biggest news, is that hopefully we won't be killing one another. Maybe we will just high-five because we all got one of the 300 SNES Classics at Target. I don't expect that much at the local Target, though, but I'll see y'all there. Moving right along, Super Bomberman R on the Nintendo Switch is, believe it or not, getting more updates. They're adding in like a new tournament mode and a 3-on-3 mode, and most interestingly, some new characters, including 2 based on Zone of the Enders, Jehuti and Anubis. And the most surprising to me, they're making a Reiko Hinamoto bomber from Rumble Roses. This makes me very happy because I really, really, really like Rumble Roses, and if they actually decided to make a new Rumble Roses, I would probably be one of the happiest people on the planet. I would be very happy with a new Rumble Roses. But this is Konami we're talking about. Like, Konami actually, that's the other thing. At Tokyo Game Show, Konami showed off a PS4 port of Zone of the Enders 2, now with VR support. You don't need VR. You can play it on a 4K TV and be like, wow, this looks amazing. But you can strap on a VR headset and play all of Zone of the Enders 2 in first person in cockpit, which, if you knew how excited I am for that. Because I played Zone of the Enders 2, I loved it, I never beat it, I can't wait to actually try to beat it in VR mode, have an actually meaty game to play in VR like that. And it's such a smart call, because Zone of the Enders 2 is a PS2 game that looks really good, so getting that optimized to run at a solid 60 FPS on a regular PS4 in, the dual images you need for your VR headset, that actually shouldn't be too hard. Shouldn't be. Konami did screw up the Silent Hill HD collection in legendary ways. But it's still surprising, because I think all of us thought Konami was done. They made so many bad business decisions and pretty much stopped producing games for a very long amount of time to focus exclusively on pachinko. And this pissed all of us off. There was certainly a hashtag against Konami. Everyone has been pretty anti-Konami, and with good reason, so it's interesting to see them doing things? Anyway, moving on. Yooka-Laylee for the Nintendo Switch has been delayed due to Unity issues. See, they were waiting for the latest Unity update to make porting to the Switch easier and work out some bugs. And then the latest Unity update came out, and the old problems were fixed, but now there's new problems. People are just having issues with Unity and the Nintendo Switch. And this is very disappointing because, like, a lot of Yooka-Laylee was built on Unity because it was one of the systems it was one of the engines that the Wii U supported, and Yooka-Laylee was originally going to be a Wii U game. They canceled the Wii U version, said they're moving it to Switch, and now they have to delay the Switch version. And apparently Battle Chasers Night War is also having problems due to Unity on the Switch. So there is definitely some issues there, and it's unfortunate to hear that. Because, of course, the Nintendo Switch is in such a peculiar place right now, where it's the inverse of the Wii U. The Wii U was, no one wants to buy the system because there are no games on it, and there are no games on it because no one's buying the system. The Switch, everyone's buying the system, where are the games? So but the Switch is less powerful than a PS4 or an Xbox One, and so people are scrambling now. They're like, oh wow, this was actually a success? Oh, how do we get games on it? Quick, anyone, what can we port to this? And yeah, that's where we're at. Although what's weird, so people are desperately trying to find things they can port to it, and some of them are really, some companies though are really stupid. Because the number one complaint right now against the new Secret of Mana remake, they are remaking Secret of Mana in HD, and it is coming out on PC, PS4 and PlayStation Vita. And they have confirmed it will indeed have its 3-player co-op that was signature to the series. But everyone's like, why is this not on Switch? Since it's coming to Vita. Like, it's not like it's a 3D remake of Secret of Mana, but it's not like super high poly count or anything. It's a very pretty low poly count. So it'll run great on Vita. And we're all like, why isn't this on Switch? Switch can handle this. This is a Vita game. Switch can do Vita games. Switch can do more than Vita games. Why isn't this on Switch? And that has been the number one complaint. Like, every time any news about that game comes out, people go, why isn't this on Switch? Especially because in Japan, the Switch got a Secret of Mana collection that contained, Secret of Mana 1, 2, Seiken Densetsu 1, 2, and 3. So, Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and Seiken Densetsu 3. Which obviously won't be coming to America because they would have to actually translate Seiken Densetsu 3, which they're not going to do, and that's a shame because that's one of the best games ever. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Dot Hack, by the way, the Dot Hack remake is being developed very well. They keep showing off new forms that Haseo can transform into. If you haven't heard, they're doing way more than porting Dot Hack GU to PlayStation 4. They're upgrading the graphics, they're tweaking the gameplay system, and they're adding in an entire new chapter to the game. And it will be Dot Hack GU, all the volumes, and yeah, that's pretty great. Moving right along, one of the more interesting and more me-centric things, Dead or Alive 5. The Core Fighters version, which is the free-to-play version, has just reached 10 million downloads. Again, it's a free-to-play version of Dead or Alive 5. 10 million people have downloaded it, and to celebrate, they will be releasing Marie Rose's Opuna costume based on the strange Wii game Opuna. They will be releasing that for free. That costume was previously in Warriors All-Stars, and now it will be in DOA 5, which is great because it's a fantastic costume. But Team Ninja has finally announced they are ending DLC support for Dead or Alive 5. It ends at the end of the year. I don't know if it's December or January, but one of the two, they will be releasing the supposed final costume pack. I do hope it's supposed. I hope they actually decide some point later on down the road to do another costume pack, but 5 years of 5 years of solid support for Dead or Alive 5. It has been a long, long road, and a lot of people, they look at the costume DLC for Dead or Alive 5, and they look at it the wrong way, because I am one of the people. A lot of people see it, and they see the hundreds of dollars worth of DLC for Dead or Alive 5, and they go, this is a scam, this is awful, I'm angry, grr. And I look at them and I go, how? Why? Because here's the thing, you can buy each costume individually. You don't need to buy all of it. They're just costumes, and you can grab them individually, and they're cheaper than costumes in any other fighting game. And the reason why there's so much is because they've released so much. You see, Dead or Alive 5 handled its DLC in a way unlike any other game. They quickly realized that it was one of the top selling points of their game, that Dead or Alive was not getting the mainstream appeal that they wanted back when they released Vanilla. You see, a lot of people, when Dead or Alive 5, the first iteration of it came out, they actually took a lot of people's advice, and they toned down the sexiness and focused on making a really good fighting game. And it flopped. No one really noticed or paid attention. It didn't see a whole lot of success, and they made most of their money off of Bikini DLC. Because they later released that, and they were like, oh, well, clearly we went in the wrong direction. So they quickly switched courses with Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. In the original Dead or Alive 5, you had to purchase costumes in, like, packs of 3, and it was awful. This time, they were like, okay, number 1, you'll be able to buy costumes individually. And number 2, we're going to have a free-to-play version so that where you just have to buy the characters and costumes that you want. And, and number 3, they released the, what are they called? The costume catalogs, so you can see costumes that you haven't bought. This one, and also, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate had PlayStation 3 as its central development system, whereas Dead or Alive 5 Vanilla was more of a Xbox 360 game. It really showed. And they used that also as a workaround for the horrible patching system on Xbox 360. Because one of the things that caused all of the horrible on-disc DLC that plagued the previous generation was Microsoft's terrible patching system. See, what you may not know about your Xbox 360 is that it does not save its patches to the hard drive. It saves them to the cache. And because of this, patches on Xbox 360, with a few rare exceptions, can only be I think 20 megabytes tops. And you can't patch in a new move or stage or character in 20 megabytes. So what they did with the Xbox 360 release of Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate was they packed that data into the costume packs, but that meant if you were online and you didn't have one of those costume packs, it wouldn't let you play the game until you downloaded the costume packs, and that wound up being incredibly confusing for anyone who jumped on the Xbox 360 version after launch. They were very confused. And so that's what went down with it. I'm sorry, I can do the whole history of this thing. I'm kind of rambling. But, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate wound up really fixing the way they handled DLC, and that was going to be the last version, but then the new consoles came out, and they were like, okay, we'll port it to PS4, Xbox One, we'll call it Ultimate, or we'll call it Last Round, and, the Ultimate versions actually auto-updated to the Last Round versions, but they eventually had to cut support because they reached some kind of DLC limit. But like I said, I'm rambling. The point was, what they did was they quickly realized DLC was one of their main sources of income for Dead or Alive 5. So they focused more on that, and they released a ton of content for Ultimate. And then when Last Round came out, they started doing the ridiculously expensive season passes because they were actually releasing new costume packs every single month. Now, here's the big kicker. A lot of people, of course, sit there and go, oh, well, I'll just wait until they release the version that has all the DLC packed in. That will likely not happen. And there is a reason behind that. That is, of course, not to devalue the DLC. See, they've released this game 3 different times. And if you just got all the DLC from the previous version for free, then why would you buy any of the new DLC? So what they did is they actually had the DLC carry over between titles. Anything you bought in Dead or Alive 5 carried over into Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Anything you bought in Ultimate carried over across console generations to Last Round. Now, a few of these costumes got packed in for free and could be unlocked. But for the most part, if you wanted those costumes, you still had to buy them. So, the ridiculous amount of costumes and the ludicrous price tag to purchase all of it was because that was literally 5 years of regular costume releases for Dead or Alive 5. And because of that, they were able to update the game. They were able to add new characters to it, add new stages, and really keep things flowing. I've never seen a fighting game so well supported as Dead or Alive 5 by its company. Unfortunately, it never really caught on with the mainstream fighting game community. It has a small cult fan base, but it never really took off quite that well. And I completely understand Team Ninja cutting the support for this. See, every year they've done a fan costume design contest, and I think the turnout for this year was kind of disappointing. On top, I'm sure sales of these costumes are probably slowing. It's kind of been 5 years. And on top of that, Team Ninja has a lot on their plate. The people who actually make Dead or Alive 5, they are making Fire Emblem Warriors for the Nintendo Switch. They just released the last DLC pack for Neo, and they're probably going to make a Neo 2 because that game was a success. They're working on Final Fantasy Dissidia for the PlayStation 4, which if you ask me, desperately needs more characters, so they should probably focus on that. And I think they've got a few other games in the pipeline, so yeah, they kind of have to hold back on just focusing so much on DLC when they've got so many other things to cover. Anyway, that's a whole lot of video game news. I'm going to kick you back to the music, of course, and then after that, we will, I'll tell you how a few games turned out, tell you how Penguin Coon Wars was, talk about Raiders of the Broken Planet, Blue Reflection, and Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. A little bit of mini first impressions coming up after the break. But first, here's Said No One Ever by Jana Kramer here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse. That was Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift, and this is 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. I was just taking a minute to desperately try to look into the stock numbers for the SNES Classic in my local area. However, it looks like those stock numbers, I can't get anything. Everything is just showing 0. And that is likely because they haven't, arrived. Looking at it now, they are showing stock numbers for New York. And that is where there is going to be, 300 SNES Classics at certain targets and stuff. Is in New York, which makes sense. It's frickin' New York. And more than likely, they've already gotten their stock. Because, these retailers are getting these things ahead of time, so that way they can sell them, midnight on launch day. Or maybe not midnight. Not everyone's going to do a midnight opening. We'll see what happens. Anyway, one more piece of information before we sink into Penguin Coon Wars. Sonic Forces on PC will get you the Persona 5 costume, but it also includes Denuvo, so you may as well not buy it on PC. Denuvo, of course, is a form of digital rights management, i.e. copy protection. It does not work, and it does damage to your computer, which is why people are like, why would you even do this, Sega? You all are idiots. Thank you for telling us ahead of time, so that way we can buy it on a different system or not buy it at all. Personally, I'm very excited for Sonic Forces, and I'm happy that I will be purchasing it. Actually, I still don't know if I'm getting it on PlayStation 4 or Switch, because the things I've seen as a Switch release are a little iffy, so I guess I'm going to get the PS4 one. I'm very excited about Sonic Forces, though. Anyway, let us move on to Penguin Coon Gira Wars. If you've been listening to the show for a while, this name probably sounds familiar. I remember when it was first announced, and I freaked out because I couldn't believe they were making it. And I've spent the last couple weeks reporting on it and being surprised that it was hitting Japan so soon. A US release date has not yet been announced, but they did say it will be coming to America. But I couldn't wait. So, what is Penguin Coon Wars? Well, the original Penguin Coon Wars is as old as me. It was released in 1985, and it was an old arcade game where you played a weird sport with a penguin. Basically, there was a table, you had 5 balls, your opponent had 5 balls, and you threw them at each other. And the goal was to get all 10 balls to your opponent's side of the table, or have the least balls on your side when time ran out. This doesn't sound all that exciting until you actually play it, because you see, if you smack your opponent with a ball, it stuns them, allowing you to just start rapidly chucking balls at them. This was the way the original Penguin Coon Wars played. It was a surprisingly fun game. And it was released on the Famicom and the MSX, but the only one to ever get a US release was the Game Boy version, which was just called Penguin Wars, of course. And it was a very early Game Boy game. And it's the only one you could actually play multiplayer in, because it has a back view, so you couldn't get both players on screen at the same time. That was one of its big problems. Like, okay, this is like a good competitive fun game, except you can't play it competitively. Unless you owned 2 Game Boys, a link cable, and 2 copies of the game, and then you could have, but that was the only way for the longest time. Most of the world forgot about Penguin Coon Wars. I didn't play it when it came out. I remember back in high school, I was goofing off in my networking class, and on a classic gaming website, I found a article about Penguin Coon Wars, calling it the surprisingly fun game, and I gave it a shot when I got home, and I had a lot of fun with it, but I couldn't play it against my friends, so I didn't get that much into it. So imagine my surprise when years later they say, oh, hey, we're bringing back Penguin Coon Wars better than ever on the Nintendo Switch. My mind was kind of blown. They were like, okay, not only do we have 2-player split screen, but we have 4-player 2-on-2, we have online play, we have characters, we have super moves, we have special abilities, we have a soundtrack composed by various Japanese club music artists, and there's a way you can play by, like, with a top-down view, and you lay the Switch on the table, and my mind is just blown. I'm like, what is this? What? Okay, new esport. Cancel Evo, it's all Penguin Coon Wars now. Unfortunately, that likely will not be happening, but the game turned out very fun. Let's answer that question. How is it? Now that I have gotten my hands on it, does it live up to the hype? Almost. Almost. I am very pleased with what I have. It surprised me in some ways, but it disappointed me in others. The biggest flaw will have to be, unfortunately, the netcode. The online play, I played one match against a guy in Japan, and it ran in slow motion. Now, I understand I'm trying to play against a guy in Japan, and we're likely both on Wi-Fi because of the way the Nintendo Switch is built. But that is a good indication of how the netcode actually works. It slows things down in order to match the speed of your internet. That's the way it's handling it. Instead of using, like, rollback netcode like GGPO. And yeah, so that means that distance is definitely going to play a huge factor in who you can play online against. Part of the reason why I'm excited for the US release is I can't wait to try to play it against people in America and see if it works, but likely not. So that is disappointing. Maybe they'll patch it, but they probably won't. Other than that, though, the game's kind of interesting because it has a really long initial load, and then pretty much all the other loads are lightning fast. And I will say that whole soundtrack by Japanese club artists, yeah, it's incredible. Like, it was worth the price of admission just for the amazing soundtrack. And it makes sense because the weird company that released it, City Connection, named after the old Jalico game, and they have the rights to all Jalico's old stuff since they went out of business, City Connection is, like, primarily a dance music publisher. So they've got connections there. And yeah, the soundtrack is amazing. Gameplay-wise, though, I am disappointed that there is no classic mode. There is no original gameplay. Because, yes, they did change the gameplay. The main thing they did was they added life bars. And it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, now it's no longer about getting all 10 balls to your opponent's side of the stage. If you pull that off, mind you, your opponent gets hit with an all-ball attack where all 10 balls hit them at once and it deals huge damage, but they do not instantly lose necessarily. And when time runs out, it's not necessarily about who has the least balls on their side. Rather, when time runs out, you get hit with all the balls on your side, and then whoever has the most life wins. So that is actually a big change, but it's a big change with a positive twist to it. Because what that means is that when you get hit with the ball, you don't get stunned as long. There are still hard stuns that knock you down and leave you vulnerable. But those hard stuns only happen when you're hit with multiple balls, or you get hit with a special shot, or you just get hit really, really hard. Just getting smacked in the face a little bit by a ball just stuns you for a second, and you take a little bit of health damage. So it is a much more aggressive game, and I want to say faster, but it doesn't quite... I don't know. I'm not sure if I would say faster, but it is definitely more aggressive. And yes, special shots. Every character has their own unique special charge shot. Turns out Penguin Coon Wars had charge shots, but now they're, like, actually specialized. Like, when you're playing as a sloth, he just chucks the ball straight over the table and it lands on the other side. Whereas the capybara, he has a bouncing ball that bounces and makes big splashes on the table. And you do that by, like, pressing Y, I think it is. And also, each set of 2 characters has their own special maneuver. the penguin and the panda both dash when you press the B button. The sloth and the capybara both do a spin attack that deflects any balls coming at them, while the sheep and the koala try to catch the ball. Initially, I felt dashing was ridiculously overpowered, but then I found myself dashing into balls a whole lot, and I was like, maybe if I got the hang of catching, that would actually be a whole lot better. Then, of course, every character has 2 super moves. As you throw the ball, you fill a super meter, and once full, you can do one of 2 super moves. If you have the ball and you press your super button, which is X, then you do a super shot, which is, a super powerful shot, and it does stupid things like the penguin gets dazzling disco showtime, which bounces off the walls back and forth really, really fast while the ball glows all crazy like. And the sheep, Jeff, he gets spicy junky tornado, which turns the ball into this tornado that does a curve shot, and it has a big ol' hitbox that's just deflecting balls everywhere and can deal some huge damage if it actually hits you. Sheep is very much about curved shots. But if you press the super button when you don't have the ball, then you'll do your other super, which for the penguin was laser reflect, which puts up a big wall that prevents any balls from hitting him for a limited amount of time. That probably sounds really overpowered, but all of them are like that. Like, I know the sloth has lazy crazy something, which causes all the balls currently on the table to stop moving and then suddenly shoot out. There's another one who has a move that causes all balls of his color to immediately shoot across the stage at the opponent. Like, there's a lot of these super moves are ridiculously broken. And it can get really crazy in the last 5 seconds of a match when everyone's spamming super moves as fast as they can. So, there's definitely some surprising twists to this game, and a little bit more to it than expected. But the most surprising thing is the story mode. Because Penguin-kun Gira Gira Wars has a story mode. It actually has an intro sequence that describes this as being a literal sequel to Penguin-kun Wars. And that it's the same penguin, but now he's getting more hardcore, and that's why he's got sunglasses, the big chain and stuff. But anyway, apparently he's like driving across the world challenging people to Penguin-kun Wars matches in his transforming truck. And yeah, it's not just you fight every single opponent and then see an ending. Rather, you go in there and it randomly generates a bunch of matches. Because what I forgot to mention, there are at least 20 different rule sets. I know there's 20 that you can use for versus mode, and I don't think I actually got through all of them. And they can do all sorts of things with those rule sets. Like, one of them is one of the balls is a bomb. And if you don't get rid of that bomb, then it blows up and you instantly lose. Another one literally turns the game into Crossfire, which you could get caught up in. What it does is there's like an exploding puck in the middle of the table, and whoever's side that puck lands on, it blows up and they instantly lose. So instead of throwing your balls at your opponent, which you can still do to stun them and deal damage, you are throwing the balls at this puck in the middle of the table to try to deflect it back at your opponent and prevent it from hitting you, which is actually one of my favorite rule sets. There's ones where there's crazy power-ups that increase speed. There's ones where there's, like, moving blocks getting in the way, or a flipping rainbow macaroni noodle trying to block your path. It's weird. Penguin-kun Wars is a little bit of a weird game. So there's a lot of different interesting rule sets in play. And in the story mode, it'll just randomly generate matches. Like, you'll still fight the generic animals from the old Penguin-kun Wars, the bunnies and the owls and the bears, who don't have anything too special going on with them, and they'll just be your generics that you fight in just random matches that earn you money and new ball skins, and they fill this meter at the bottom of the screen, and when that meter fills up, you get to do a boss match against the actual character. And it will be their, like, pre-Gira Gira form. Like, Jeff was actually unshaven, and I want to know if I can unlock that, because I think Jeff looks better as an unshaven sheep. But yeah, you fight Unshaven Jeff, and then when you beat him, he shaves and becomes cool and joins your team, and then you can use him and move on to the next world. And it just kind of goes on like that. I will say the presentation in story mode is better than in versus mode. In versus mode, all the stages look the same, and I'm a little disappointed in that. Whereas in story mode, the stages actually look different, and you've got crazier lighting effects. You've got the stands are full of little 2D cutouts of animals hopping around. It's pretty nuts, though. It is a surprisingly meaty game for what it is. Like, it literally feels like they took Penguin Coon Wars and said, let's get this up to Mario sports standards. And it feels like a GameCube game. It feels like something I would have paid full price for back on GameCube. So, it being a much cheaper download now, yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, I can't complain about that. I really like me some Penguin Coon Gira Wars. I do wish the netcode was better. I do wish I could pick flashier stages for versus mode. But the soundtrack is fantastic. The gameplay is definitely still fun. Actually, I do have to say the story mode where you're filling a meter to face off against the boss, it does start to feel a little bit grindy after a while. It's also worth noting that you get to customize your stats in the story mode, which you can't do in versus mode and stuff. So, again, interesting twists there. I want to know, I need to look through the playstyles, because I want to see if there's a turbo mode. Because in one of the playstyles, you had balls that move at high speed, and another one, there was one where I could get speed power-ups that caused me to move at high speed, and I'm like, can I just have both of these? Can I just have a turbo mode for this game so it runs at stupid speed? Because I think it would be... I like everything to go fast, so I think it would be way more fun that way. But yes, I'm pleased with what I see. Not perfect, netcode needs work, but fans of weird sports games like the Mario Sports series or like Windjammers and games like that might want to look into Penguin Coon Gira Wars when it hits the States. Eventually. That is one of the things. Since there is so much text in the story mode, it might actually take a month or two to translate all of it. I don't even know if they have a U.S. publisher. Oh, and yeah, one more thing. The pixel art in the game is a joke. It's not clean. All the times they try to use retro pixels, it's not clean. You can see very clear JPEG fragmenting, and the resolution is too low. Like, when the characters are talking to one another, they're using these 8-bit sprites, but they're at Tamagotchi resolutions, but blown up to the size of your HD TV. And I'm like, what am I looking at? Am I sure this isn't porn? Because everything's so pixelated, I can't tell what it is. Oh, it is a definite failure of retro 8-bit pixel art. I know what they were trying to do, it didn't work. But, for the most part, very, very nice game. I'm pretty pleased with it. Here's hoping the US release goes well. And hey, maybe the netcode will work when I'm playing against US players. That'd be great. I'd love to take everyone on. But that's what I've got there. I'm going to kick y'all back to the music, though. Take a quick break, and when we get back, I'll tell you about my experience with Raiders of the Broken Planet, which I've got some stories. That was, I streamed that last night, tried to stream it with a friend, and things went interestingly. In the end, we just decided to play Dead or Alive 5 instead. But first, here's No Complaints by Metro Boomin featuring Offset and Drake. Here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you. That was Bad and Bougie by Migos featuring Lil Uzi Vert. And this is 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. So, I'm desperately trying to bring up some information on the Super Nintendo Classic situation. Unfortunately, the internet here is not always very cooperative. But let us talk about Raiders of the Broken Planet, because this game was a thing. basically, yesterday, we had a bunch of games come out, and one of them is a free-to-download the first episode of game called Raiders of the Broken Planet by Mercury Steam. Mercury Steam is the developers of Castlevania Lords of Darkness, as well as, what's the name of that thing? The Metroid 2 remake that just came out. Well, they decided to release their own original game, a third-person episodic shooter where you download the first episode completely for free, and then each episode after it is supposed to be a standalone adventure that's sold at different prices. Each one comes with new characters, and you're supposed to be able to play a 4-player co-op online, and then a 5th player can join in as an antagonist and fight against you with all the computer-controlled characters. So it's almost like Mind Jack meets Evolve, and I think a lot of us would like a non-crap version of Mind Jack. Mind Jack's a little bit of a favorite of mine, not for being good, but for being so stupid. Like, maybe I shouldn't say that on the air, but Mind Jack was an old 360 PS3 game, I guess it's not that old, where the whole idea was that you jacked into the minds of different characters, and even though it was a story-based game, people could join in and play as the enemies and prevent your progress, and most people played because they loved doing that. And it was kind of a mess. It wasn't it was a pretty infamously bad game, really. But the concept was fun. And so the idea of someone else going, hey, let's do that, but more polished, a little bit appealing. I popped the game in, and there's so much about it that I like. The graphics look fantastic. It runs super smooth, even on a regular PlayStation 4. Apparently, it's out on PC as well, because you can do cross-play with PC. It has some very interesting character designs, a very interesting aesthetic, and it feels AAA. It feels incredibly polished. I liked a lot of what I saw. Unfortunately, a number of bad design decisions that thankfully could be patched out really dragged the game down kicking and screaming. Starting, believe it or not, with the tutorial. Because of the tutorial, they decide to stick you with Stealthy McSniper Pants. And it's the only character you can play in the tutorial. The problem there is when you try to aim with his gun, it zooms in automatically because it's a sniper rifle. Well, in the tutorial, you're dealing with enemies at relatively close range. So in a way, it renders his gun actually useless. And so the tutorial is built entirely around stealth, even though this is a third-person shooter that doesn't necessarily require use stealth. The tutorial would have been fine if I could play as literally any other character, but they had to give me the one that's way too specialized to work well in a tutorial. It's important to remember that I am stealth impaired. I cannot sneak. I've never beaten the second stage of Tenchu, and the second stage of Tenchu is the furthest I've ever gotten in a stealth game. I had to quit Legend of Zelda Wind Waker because they gave me that stealth segment where you're hiding in the barrels. Yeah, that's too hard for me. I can't stealth. So I was very annoyed that they decided that this game, that generally is not a stealth game, they were like, oh no, we're going to have this entire tutorial that's built around stealth. Oh, brilliant. But then I get in there and I play the single player and I'm like, wow, this is really, really stupid, hard, and not particularly well balanced. I like, it feel like at first there were too few enemies, then there were too many, and I was like, what's up with this? Well, after getting a chance to play multiplayer, it pretty much looks like they didn't rebalance it for single player. But I was like, okay, I'm going to call up a friend. Because it's a free download, I'll call him up, be like, hey, join me on the stream. Download the game, it's free, you play through the tutorial, we'll try to do this first mission together. Come on, let's go. So we get in there, we invite each other to a group, we pick a mission, and we're like, how do we start? How do we go? And we're sitting there scratching our heads, there's no go button. And then finally the mission just suddenly starts. Get this, you can't play multiplayer without 4 players. They don't let you play 2-player co-op. They do not allow it. Well, good job there, genius. You have an episodic game. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to play episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 without people downloading those games. And I might be able to find people to play with for episode 2, but by the time episode 5 comes out, people who actually bought and are playing Episode 5 will be in very, very small numbers. I'm not going to be able to find a 4-player match that easily. I'd have to, actively organize it. And it pretty much isn't happening. Why would you do this? Why would you kneecap? You built a multiplayer co-op game, and you kneecapped it right there. You just blew the kneecaps right out. Falls on the floor, face first. Good. Really? No way to start without 4 players. But what if I only want to play with my friend? What if I only want to play 2-player? What makes this worse, and I know this is a common thing, and I don't like it, is the fact that only 1 player can play each character. And I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. I know League of Legends does it. That's one of the reasons why I don't play League of Legends. I know Paladins does it. I don't like that about Paladins. I was very disappointed when Overwatch implemented it, but I can at least give that a pass since that was a full-price game that came with all the characters. See, my beef here is that you have these free-to-play games where you buy each individual character. So you're spending money to get a character that you are going to specialize in, that you are going to play in. And then someone else picks your character, and it's like, well, I just wasted my money. What was all that money I spent on costumes and stuff for? What was all that training I did with this one character for if once I pick it, I can't play them? Now, this game comes with a bunch of characters, and then each episode pack you get to unlock more characters. Now, in the recruitment screen, it says you don't need... This is another script. A big screen pops up saying you do not need to buy the episodes to buy each character. You do not to recruit each character. You can do that individually. And I'm like, okay. So I go over to the one new character. They say, oh, you can't get this character until you buy this episode and beat this one mission. So what, did you lie, or are you just incompetent? And then when we played the mission, the guy playing as the antagonist, here's the thing, the antagonist can use double characters. They can use the same character as someone else in your team. So we're playing online, and we've got an antagonist, we've got someone playing as an enemy, and they quit. The mission ends. We didn't get to beat the mission, and then we sat there seeing if we could get into another game. It just ended, we got some rewards, but that meant we couldn't progress. I couldn't see if there's another episode after that, or if there's only one, actual mission that you get for free, or if I get, a full 4 missions. Because that looks to be about the length of each episode. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm just screaming, because I'm like, this is so close to good. Again, it runs well. The graphics are fantastic. The character designs and art design are interesting. I am actually interested and invested in this game. I was ready to buy that first episode. I was like, get in here, let's play this. I think I'm buying that first episode. Let's find out how it goes. And then it just craps the bed all over the place. Good job, Raiders of the Broken Planet. I need to make a video on this and just send it to Mercury Steam, because all these things are things that can be patched out. You can fix this. You can save Raiders of the Broken Planet, and the moment you do, I will buy an episode of it, because I was kind of liking this. But if I have to play... But your single player is unbalanced, and your multiplayer doesn't work unless you have all 4 players, which is dumb. And it's not going to work out in the long run. I don't even know if they're going to finish the first season of this game, to be completely honest with you, because I was having so much trouble finding anyone to play with, even on both PS4 and PC. I was having trouble finding people to play with. Actually, speaking of that, okay, so that's Raiders of the Broken Planet, but, give it you know what, it is free. I would say give it a download just to take a peek at it and be as disappointed as I am that they screwed up stupid things. It's like, all you need to do is let me launch a mission with only 2 players, maybe tweak the enemy account for single player, and let us pick multiple of the same character, because screw you, I paid money for those characters, I want to play as them. Even though I haven't yet, I would like to. I would like to play as the characters I spend money to get. I really... that's the thing that's preventing me from getting into Paladins, to be completely honest. It's like, if I spend money to get a character, I want to be able to play as that character. Don't screw me on this one. But it's always stupid. But that did remind me, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, but for a minute, did you hear that Xbox One and PlayStation 4 were accidentally able to play with one another? You see, Fortnite just released its new expansion. Fortnite's another free-to-play game. I need to download it and give that one a shot, because that looks really fun. But Fortnite, it's a free-to-play game, and Xbox One, I think it has crossplay between PS4 and PC, and, or Xbox One and PC, I'm not sure which way it goes, but, like, it had some degree of crossplay to it, but Sony's like, no, PS4 will never play with Xbox One, even though Microsoft's completely on board with it, Sony isn't. But while people were playing, they bumped into players who were on Xbox One, and they were like, what? You can't write, because of the name. They figured it out because of the name. Because Xbox One usernames let you have spaces, and PlayStation 4 usernames don't let you have spaces. So they were like, how does this guy have a space in his name? And they looked into it, and they were like, we're playing with Xbox One players. And a bunch of other people looked into it, and sure enough, they were accidentally able to play with Xbox One players. They later released a patch to quote-unquote fix this, because it was a setting that they had accidentally set wrong. A setting to allow crossplay. So pretty much, in at least Fortnite, crossplay is as easy as flipping a switch. And actually, Rocket League said the same thing. The people behind Rocket League, they're like, oh yeah, crossplay between all the systems is as easy as flipping a switch for us. We can make this happen, no problem. It's the same game running on all these consoles. It's just, the PlayStation 4 is blocking itself off. Rocket League is another one where it's like Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch. Minecraft, the Switch update got delayed, but Switch is going to be able to play with Xbox One and PC as well. It's just PlayStation 4 who's like, just Sony being like, no, we don't want to play with those dirty Xbox players, ew. And it's like, Sony, you're shooting yourself in the foot here. You're a bunch of idiots. But, what do you expect? It's Sony. Sony gonna Sony, right? Ooh, and I'm starting to run out of time, so let's talk about the other games I played. First of all, DWVR. I have been, since the dawn of motion control, people have been wanting games where they get to swing a sword. And we did get one on the PlayStation Move with Sports Champions Gladiator Duel. It shows that it does work. And yes, I know Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and Red Steel 2, but those were very rudimentary. Still, Red Steel 2 was super fun, but that was rudimentary sword control. We got actual one-to-one sword control in Gladiator Duel. It was possible, but so few games like this came out. And so we're all sitting here in VR going, when's our sword game? When's our sword game? When do I get to swing a sword at something other than fruit? And DWVR is some kind of arena-based wave shooter where you're like fighting skeletons, the big crazy-looking dark cathedral thing, and you can switch between guns, magic, and swords. And I was like, I gotta buy this. So I went out, I bought it, I grabbed my swords, I'm like, swords all day, let's go. And oh my goodness, it sucked. This is a problem I think we're going to see in the future, because I hear this is how Skyrim VR is, that is going to be known as damage sticks. Basically, I didn't even have to swing the sword. If my sword touched a skeleton, they instantly exploded. I accidentally teleported into a few skeletons and insta-killed them. There was a skeleton that actually ran into my sword and killed itself. You don't have to swing it. If that sword touches an enemy, they instantly take damage and die. And it's like, and I hear that's kind of how Skyrim is. And I'm like, And I know you could do better. A bunch of people are like, oh, well, you need tactile feedback. No, you could do better. Beyond that, DWVR feels more like a proof of concept than a real game. It supports the PlayStation aim, but does not have smooth turning. The game has no real plot or rhyme or reason. It's just pick a stage, mow down some skeletons, which they don't throw nearly enough at you, because there's no radar to really see where the enemies are coming from. So they usually sneak up behind you, and you spend a lot of time running around just in emptiness looking for enemies to shoot at. The AI is very basic. The animation is very basic. It's not that great of a game. Like, I'm glad it was cheap. Moving on. Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. I didn't spend too much time with the US release. I beat it in Japanese. But I got to play one match online. And this is a problem. The way after the first patch to the Japanese release, they made it so that way, like, if your connection is too low, you can't ready up. But it doesn't really tell you that. So you're just sitting there trying to ready up, and you can't. And keep in mind, this is a team-based squirt gun shooter. And a bunch of people are like, are we able to ready up or not? What's the problem? And they can't tell, and they're having trouble getting into games. And that sucks, because when I finally got into a game, it was super fun, at least for right now. Because no one in America knows about the broken cards. Peach Beach Splash actually has a weird card system in place, which gives you, like, special moves based on cards you collect. And there are 2 completely broken cards that everyone in Japan spammed and utterly ruined the game. Now, mind you, the game has been updated, like, 11 times. So, they might have tweaked these, they might have nerfed these, but I don't think so, and these are the game ruiners. One is a shield. It makes you invincible. The other is no reload. It makes all enemies in the area be unable to reload their guns. And in Japan, that was all anyone did. You couldn't hurt them, and you couldn't shoot. Just whole match. It sucked. And it was such a shame, because when it's not like that, it's a really fun game, because it's built on a completely different idea of what a third-person shooter can even be. Wherein you're dashing around at high speed, and you have an auto lock on. It's really more like Virtual On than it is a proper third-person shooter. I've got a few more minutes, so I guess maybe we'll talk about Peach Beach Splash more as we get more developments. I'm going to keep trying to get some online matches, see if maybe it was because I was streaming that I was having trouble connecting. I'd really like to play more online, though. And I'll also let you know if they've cleaned up the frame rate, because one of my big complaints was that it had a really inconsistent frame rate. And one of the nice things about Senran Kagura Estival Versus was the smooth frame rate. But last big thing that I played was Blue Reflection. Blue Reflection is a magical girl-themed RPG for the PlayStation 4 from Gust. And it is very interesting because it is simultaneously low budget but beautiful, but that's the way Gust is. Like, they focus on the weirdest things. Like, the hair shine is amazing. The material on the clothes is amazing. The skirt physics are some of the most amazing I've ever seen. But, like, the mouth animations are just kind of this generic loop. The walking animations are the backgrounds are It's available on both PS4 and Vita, and it looks like it's kind of trying to be like Persona, but with magical girls, where you play this schoolgirl who wanted to be a ballerina, and she was a great ballerina, but then she had a leg injury, and she can't do ballet anymore, and she feels out of place. But then she finds out there's this alternate world where she can transform into a magical girl and fight evil, and get in touch with people's feelings and stuff. And it looks like it's going for a sort of Persona 3, 4, 5 theme of going to school, making friends with people, raising your social links, and then traveling to this other world to fight evil, except this time magical girls. It is a traditional turn-based RPG, and that is probably going to be the thing that most hurts it, because it is a very generic RPG thus far. It looks like it might be a little bit of a slow burn, so I'm going to need to spend a lot more time with it. I really wish the school had a good map, because I'm having a hard time finding my way around. And yeah, you can't control the camera in you can't control the camera in the game because it's a Vita game. It seems very but at the same time, it's a very specialized niche game. Basically, people who love magical girls that much and like this melancholy tone that it has going on will likely dig it for the atmosphere and tone and concept. As an RPG, thus far, it doesn't seem like it's bad, but it doesn't seem like it's amazing either. It seems very but it will definitely appeal to a very specific group of people. Whew! Anyway, we will probably elaborate on those later. I will definitely try to get the stream that I did of them up on my channel soon. We had some stream issues, so I'm going to need to do some editing for both that and my Penguin Coon Wars stream. But yeah, please stay tuned next week. Anyway, we're running out of time, so thank you so much for joining us for GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Come again next week from 1 to 3 p.m., and we'll see where we are. Anyway, I guess it's time for me to leave you all, and Yeah. I don't think I have any song that short, so, yeah, I guess we're just going to, this isn't quite proper, but I guess we're just going to exit out on this. So thank you again for listening to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I have been your host, Jell. Come again next week from 1 to 3 p.m., and thank you so much for listening. Thank you once again. And yeah, coming up next after a little while will be RK9, I believe, and that show should be very fun. So please stay tuned. Until then, I'm signing out.